I'm Lee Dufield, and I'll be interviewing Roy Erickson. Um, so I guess my opening question would be, where were you born?
I was born in Strasbourg on September 20th, 1934, at 114 Railway Avenue.
So how big, or what profession did you do, I guess?
Pardon?
What career did you choose?
Well, my dad had owned a farm machinery business, and I stayed with him and worked with him all the time.
Okay. So how big were the farms back then?
Oh, probably a quarter section to a half section. My grandma and grandpa and my dad came to this area from South Dakota, and with a horse and covered wagon in 1903. The trip was 800 miles, and they got a homestead east of Strasbourg. The taxes on the quarter of land were $5 at the time, and if you worked on the road, you only had to pay $3 taxes.
So how were the farms passed down, I guess?
Pardon?
How were the farms passed down? Were they to, like, the oldest son or person
Yeah.
who stayed home?
Yeah. Well, I think generally at the time there was the family kept the farm, and, like I didn't, but I never lived on the farm, just in town. And but I think most of the farmers' sons at that time stayed on the farm.
So what was a big thing your family did to pass time? Like cards or played ball or...
Well, I think in those days there was no television or no cell phones, so you played lots of cards with the neighbors and board games and listened to a lot of music on the radios, I guess. Yeah.
I guess.
And people used to do a lot more visiting than they do now. Like, nobody visits anymore. Just the way it is. But you sit down in front of the TV and that's it.
So what type of music was popular back then? Because you said radios were a big thing.
Well, radios and records, I guess, a lot. The records in those days weren't on a little disc like that. They were on a 78, we called them 78 RPM records, which were about that big. We had lots of those, and eventually got down to 45s, which were about that big. But we listened to a lot of music and listened to a lot of radio. Listened to a lot of hockey games Saturday night.
So what kind of sports were big back then?
Oh, mostly ball, I would think. And I guess there was hockey going on too. But, mostly farmers' kids and farmers who would play ball at a sports day or something.
Right. So I guess, what was a thing you did in your spare time when you were a kid?
Well, went to the neighbors, I guess, and played. Rode bikes, and as Ron Hamner said, he had a shuttling pony. We had a shuttling pony in town. You know, it would take you a half an hour to go downtown and 5 minutes to go back home again. And then he'd try to dump you off.
So I guess, what were some things you never think you would see in your lifetime?
Well, in those days, in the wintertime, we had a lot more snow than we get now. We hardly get any snow now. And the highways used to be all blocked. The railroads were all blocked. Winter clothing was a lot heavier and thicker than it is now. So that's, and we did a lot of tobogganing. In fact, we tobogganed behind cars, which wasn't very good. But skied behind cars, but wasn't good.
I guess.
And in those days, there was one-room schools, and I don't know if you know that, but anyway, in the wintertime, farmers all went or drove their kids to school, or the kids drove to school with the teams. And there was barns and there's one-room schools, and they put the horses in there when they're at school. And and there was, I remember lots of blizzards in those days too, but when you were on your way home with a team of horses, you didn't have to worry, because the horses knew where they were going, and they would get you back to their barn without any trouble. But there was lots of blizzards and lots of snow.
So I guess you answered most of my questions, actually.
Just ask him if he has anything he wants to say.
Do you have anything you'd like to tell us?
Well, like if you live on a farm, you may not know, but your dad certainly would know that farm equipment nowadays is way bigger and costs a lot more. Like a combine these days is $700,000. And I brought a little book along when Dad sold tractors and one-way discs. And the tractor wasn't a big tractor, 25 horsepower or something. It was $1,300. Now you can't even buy a tire for your tractor under $3,000. So things have really changed on the farm. Combines were small. Your dad probably knew about a one-way disc, which was a smaller version of a discer, which you probably had at one time. And the blades are 24-inch, and these one-way discs started at 4.5 feet and got to 10 feet, and that was it.
So I guess, what do you think of these really big farms now?
Well, that's the way it's going. Like the small farmer can't make it anymore. There's just no way he hasn't got enough land. So the big farmers are buying him out or renting him out. And that's the way it's going. You know, like Hamner's got, I don't know how many 100 acres or how many 100 quarters. And that's the way, even around here, it's the younger farmers, and they're not young, but the younger farmers are taking over renting or buying the older farmers' land, because, and they were those lands were small, so and they're probably the average size farm now is, I don't know, 4,000, 4,500 acres. That's I guess, but it's probably good.
Yeah.
Just think.
Well, thanks for coming and sharing your time with us.
Okay.
Do you mind if I ask Roy a question?
Huh.
Roy, you're the oldest living resident of Strasbourg that's lived here your entire life, to the best of my knowledge.
I think so.
We talked about that the other day. We think so. I don't want to put you on the spot, and take your time. I can always edit out the video parts when you're thinking and not saying anything. But this film is going to be in the Strasbourg Museum, and I wondered if you could, just in your own words, talk a little bit about the town of Strasbourg, growing up and to the present day, and the changes that you've seen, and just your memories of the town. Could you you might want to include, I won't put words in your mouth, but you did a lot of different things in this town just besides working. Your involvement in community activities and your volunteer work at the theater and all those things. Could you do just some of your Strasbourg memories?
Oh. Well, when I worked in the theater here, actually it wasn't volunteer. I did get paid, and the movies run 2 nights a week, I guess. And well, one of the things that's really changed is my first wife, who passed away. After the Saturday show, we went to the bar. And at those days, you couldn't find a seat to sit in. And now you can't find anybody sitting in the seats. That's one of the things. And I guess as kids and younger people, we communicated more than we do now. As kind of mentioned before, it's all cell phones now. You don't see a kid walking around or adult without a cell phone in their hand. And everybody seems to be staying home watching television. You know, we used to go out 2 or 3 times a week just to go and visit the neighbors and have coffee or stuff like that. It doesn't happen anymore.
And one of the streets in town is named after her. Erickson Drive is
Erickson Road, yeah,
Erickson.
because our shop was, and we lived, you know, in that area, so after a while the town named it Erickson Road, which is really nice. And I delivered groceries for Curry's. In the wintertime, you used a sleigh, and you kept, you know, deliver and they were all delivered, mostly, in town. And you get to the far end of town with an order, drop it off, and get back to the store. Then that same person's neighbor ordered something there. You go all the way back there again, and get home about 7:30 for supper. Then we had bikes, and we delivered groceries with the bikes. Keith Hove and I, slugger. He worked for Heavysides, I think. But as far as kids in my grade and like graduation, grade 12, most of them are gone. I think Roger Forsman in Nova Scotia, he's still alive. Dennis Everett passed away, so not very many of us left.
thank you.
Thanks for
That's good.
your time.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to meet you.